Welcome to Certified Fresh, the interview series with artists and producers featured in the mixes of the aesthetic deity, the bus driver himself, the lean sommelier, your plug's favorite DJ, Ryan Celsius. I'm your host, JV. Head over to YouTube and tune in to Blaze Bus Radio, the Ryan Celsius live stream playing 24/7 lo-fi, experimental trap, funk, vaporwave, and other groovy tunes set to psychedelic visuals. On IG, he's at Ryan.Celsius. On SoundCloud, he's just Ryan Celsius. Follow Certified Fresh on IG at rc.certifiedphresh. That's fresh with a PH. Today's guest is...
Do it to him, Vaughn.
Hailing from Indianapolis and formerly known as Vonathan, Von Strom is member of a funk collective that got its start in Brazil and now spans the globe. Listen as we talk shop on making beats, the importance of persistence, and some beef Vaughn found himself in with another household name in the funk universe. Let's get started. I know this isn't a question that I wrote down for you, but like, had you ever heard of Ryan Celsius before?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, funk hasn't been super big on YouTube, but channels started popping out like Emotional Tokyo and Ryan Celsius, who really started repping that sound, and it's really nice to see so many people appreciate the music, and so you guys are a huge part in that.
Let's talk a little bit more about you. Where are you from?
I'm from Indianapolis.
And that's Indiana, right?
Yep. I don't know if you know of him, but back when he's a funk producer from Purple Posse.
Yeah.
He's actually from Indiana too. He's from like south part of the state.
Oh, okay, cool. Have you ever hooked up with him and made music?
No, not yet. We're planning to link up sometime before the end of the year though, so that'll be dope.
Nice, man. Nice. When did you get started making music?
It was probably like 2012 or so. I started making really cringy dubstep music, but you know, we all got to start somewhere, I guess. And then I sort of started making trap music, and then I sort of slowly progressed into making funk music.
What influenced you to move into trap?
I think it was just, I used to listen to a lot of music off of YouTube. I definitely relate to a lot of the people who fuck with the Ryan Celsius channel, just because that was like the main way I consumed music was through YouTube and YouTube mixes and stuff. And so through way of recommended videos, I guess, just discovered trap music and sort of fell in love with it, and then sort of started listening to more underground stuff. I actually found out about Backwinds music through YouTube mixes, and that's what brought me to funk music.
It seems that YouTube and SoundCloud and stuff like that are becoming the like de facto way to discover new music. MTV's not even a thing anymore.
Yeah.
People don't really care about that kind of exposure. You could even say radio still has a hand in things, but it's only stuff like, you know, stuff coming out of like New York or Los Angeles or anything like that. But the internet has just made it so easy and so accessible for anybody anywhere to listen to something from anybody anywhere else in the world.
Absolutely. It's super exciting, because I don't think I'd be making music today if it weren't for the internet. Even dubstep, which is what inspired me to start making music in the first place, I would have never even known it existed had it not been for YouTube. It's just crazy.
Yeah, man. So let's get a little bit more into you as the producer that we all know and love. When I first heard of you, your name was Vonathan, and then most recently
Right.
you changed your name to Von Storm. Why'd you change your name?
Well, it actually it goes back to a few months ago, like the beginning of the summer or so. I found out that Travis Scott's real name is Jacques Webster. And I was like, damn, that is a cool ass name. And but some people don't think so. Some people think it's a corny name, but I think it's really dope. And honestly, I think it's cooler than Travis Scott. So I was thinking like, man, I wonder why he didn't just, go by Jacques Webster. I think that's a pretty unique name. And my real name is Von Storm, and people seem to think that that's a pretty cool name. So
Those people are 100% right.
I appreciate it. Yeah. So I just got to thinking, I was like, damn, I don't want people looking into me and being like, damn, he's got a cool like real name. Why is he going by Vonathan? And so, I just changed it because not only that reason, but also just because it literally is more reflective of who I am, because it's my real name.
I've heard of rappers who will do that, like most famously Kendrick Lamar. He had like a rap name, and then eventually he just went by his real name, and it just so happens that his real name is like kind of rolls off the tongue as well. Is Von short for something?
It's not. It's just Von Storm.
Damn, that's a sick name, man. That's awesome.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. So when you're making this music, you said you started with dubstep, moved to trap, now you're on like this funk wave. In
Hmm.
your words, you say that you produce weird rap beats. Would you say you lean more towards the funk genre when you're producing music, or how would you describe your sound?
Definitely leaning towards funk. That's definitely what I make most. I definitely lean funk, but I try to integrate some other stuff too.
What's the funk scene like in Indianapolis?
As far as I know, there really isn't one. Indianapolis is not really known for its hip hop scene. It's definitely more of a hub for like indie rock and that sort of thing. Indiana's kind of behind when it comes to the that sort of thing.
Do you find it hard to stay in that area and do the work that you do?
That's the thing is like with the internet, I haven't felt very limited by my physical location just because like, and I know we'll probably end up talking about this later, but Holy Mob, before
Say
I
your
actually met up with
prayers.
them sometime last winter, I had never met any of them. Like I met all of them through the internet, and they're some of my best friends. And I went like an entire year without even having ever met any of these people, and they're some of the people I connect most with, especially in terms of my art.
How did you link up with Holy Mob? Who are they?
Yeah, so Holy Mob is a funk collective that was started in fall of 2016. And the way it got started is actually kind of a funny story because when it started, it was all Brazilian producers. None of the people, well, except for maybe Lucas, but none of the people you see in Mob today were in it when it first started. It was started by some Brazilian guy named Thuggin, and there was this particular guy in the original Holy Mob roster named Lil Bros. And I remember I was absolutely obsessed with his beats. Like he probably only had like around 300 or 400 followers, but I remember thinking that his beats were just insane. And so when I was making my first funk tape in like fall of 2016 or so, I asked him to collab on it, and shortly after, he invited me to join Holy Mob. And I guess they started inviting other non-Brazilians in addition to me to the mob because that's when I met Gali and Poir, and they're American and Canadian, so it was just the three of us and then a bunch of Brazilian producers. Needless to say, the group chat was a little hard to follow at times with all the Portuguese. Whatever. We ended up dropping Holy Mob Volume 1, which, by the way, isn't the Volume 1 that you see today. It was like the original Volume 1 with the original roster, which is on private today, I think. But it was an okay tape. It wasn't the best. But then at some point, Thuggin, the guy who founded the collective, he and Poir got into this fucking stupid argument about house music or something, and Thuggin just dipped. Like he was like, "I'm out." And so after that, there was like a serious lack of leadership. So we had just dropped our first tape. The main like leader dipped, and nobody had any motivation to keep this thing going. So it seemed like Holy Mob was gonna die before it even got off its feet. Then Gali dipped, and he was like, "Unless you guys can get some serious producers to join this thing, I'm out. I don't have time for this." And so me and Poir just went around recruiting some of the dopest producers we could find in the scene. So we picked up Intius, Courage, or Caspian Rose, Shelter, Necros, VDB, and most of the guys you see on the tapes today. That's how it got started.
None of the original founding members of Holy Mob are around anymore?
Lucas, I think, was the in the original one. He's one of two Brazilian producers we've got in the collective today. He and Necros are Brazilian. I think he's the only actual original member.
What's it been like just kind of growing and making music with Holy Mob? How's that whole experience been?
Like I said, it's amazing because there's some of my closest friends, especially for somebody like me who doesn't have a strong hip hop music scene at home. It's nice to be able to have people to talk to about that sort of thing, and share our passion, share my passion with. It's just been amazing because I think that a lot of people starting out, they try to model their music from like making or watching YouTube tutorials or learning in that way. But I think that I've learned the most just from collaborating and bouncing ideas off of the guys in Holy Mob.
This is something that I have noticed, and I'm just a little curious about. So funk as a genre deals with a lot of trap music. It does a lot of trap remixes, flips,
Hmm.
and stuff like that. But I have seen that most funk producers are white. So what has it been like being a part of this underground scene, and like being a white guy in like a I guess like a sport, so to speak, that's usually or mostly associated with black people?
It is kind of weird, right? Because you gotta walk that fine line of you gotta find a balance between like appreciating the music and not trying to like sort of, I hate saying like reappropriate because like,
That's the time
but
that we live in now.
right, exactly. It's like you want to walk the fine line between, because like especially when you're sampling so many uh pivotal artists in the Memphis rap movement who are black, you want to make sure that you're paying your respects.
Yeah, exactly. And that's something that I also heard DJ Smokey say. I listened to a few of his interviews and he was kind of saying the same thing. He wasn't asked about like the race aspect, but regardless, he was saying if you're going to be making this shit, you got to pay homage to the DJ Screws, the Juicy J's, the
Absolutely.
like all of that kind of stuff. So I take it that that's the kind of music that you like listening to, or do you only listen to it when you're producing?
Oh no, I listen to it. Sometimes you're just in a mood, you know. Memphis rap music really is unmatched in terms of the type of style it offers. You don't see that in a lot of other scenes. It's just it's very I don't want to say lo-fi, but like very gritty style. You don't get a lot of that today where everything's clean and polished and like perfectly mastered at 0 dB, nothing's clipping. In Memphis rap, you get unfiltered nonsense and it's amazing. You know, it's just it's nice to take a break from all the modern mainstream music and go back and listen to that stuff.
You were getting a little technical, and I want to dive more into that now. From the samples to the drum kits, how does Von Storm craft a beat?
It usually starts with the samples. Like if I find a sample that sounds good on its own, I'll chop that up. Or if I find a layer that would sound good mixed with something else, I'll try and match it with another layer I've got.
What do you
Uh,
mean when you say layer?
it's a sample, but it's like, I guess the best way to describe it is like it's thin. There's not a lot going on. There's just like if you find like an ARP that sounds really good and you're sampling an ARP from a certain song, if there's nothing else going on, it's just that ARP. Like maybe that ARP would layer really well with a pad that you found in a different sample. And so
So can I'm gonna ask you to keep on breaking stuff down. What's an ARP?
an ARP is, well, I'm not schooled in music, but the way I understand it is just like it's an arpeggio or like a few notes going up or down a scale in quick succession.
Oh, okay,
Um,
I see.
yeah, Smokey does a lot of layering. Studio is really good at layering too, and so layering is a really good way to set yourself apart from other people who might be using the same sample that you use, but you know you brought something else to the table that makes yours unique.
You've been producing for what, like 4 or 5 years now?
Yeah,
Okay.
about that.
In that time that you've been producing, like looking back, or even if you take Von Storm as he is a producer today, could you hear like two of the same beats, one produced by like an amateur and then one produced by somebody who's had like a few years in the game, and could you be able to tell the difference between, I guess, the skill level of the person that produced it?
I think so, definitely. Especially if you're listening on a good sound system, it's really easy to hear the differences in mixing between the two. That's definitely something that I think separates amateurs from people who have a little bit more experience is mixing. When you start out, you're trying to get the loudest mixes possible. You're trying to make your shit knock, you know,
Hmm.
as many people would say, but you know, sometimes you learn that less is more. And so, you know, your kick doesn't have to be clipping at 0 dB. Your 808 doesn't have to be really loud and distorted to get its point across. So, I think that's the number one thing that separates them, and I think it'd be pretty easy to tell the difference on that note.
Mixing is the number one thing that separates an amateur from somebody with more experience.
I would say so, yeah.
A lot of amateurs and pros and everybody in between have been putting music up everywhere, like we were talking about earlier, with the internet just being that thing that breaks down all of the barriers from people being able to release music. And of course, I think in the funk and lo-fi, vaporwave, like all of those kind of niche genres, SoundCloud has definitely been like the mecca or the go-to hub to release your stuff. and it's quietly developed a pretty solid underground of great music. I mean, you're on there, Holy Mob, Purple Posse, all those people like that, Ryan Celsius, obviously. With
Hmm.
you guys, is there some type of unspoken fear of, the mainstream finding this sound?
A lot of people definitely feel like that. For me, at least, I'm not afraid of that at all. I think if anything, the mainstream adopting this sound could only be good for the scene, just because it shines a light on all those talented producers and artists that I think deserve more recognition. And we've already seen examples of funk bleeding into the mainstream. Testing by ASAP Rocky, Astroworld, Scorpion. It's really starting to catch on. So I'm looking forward to some of these SoundCloud guys getting a piece of the pie, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. The one producer I was talking with, Odwin, was talking about how I believe SoundCloud is unveiling some new platform that will allow you to monetize your music and stuff like that. Have you heard anything
Hmm.
like that?
Yeah, yeah, they let you monetize your music now without having to go through a distributor or a label.
Oh, so it like you can just upload it straight to SoundCloud, and then obviously if you get the hits, just the money starts rolling in. There's really no middleman.
I think so, yeah.
So looking at your numbers, your shit's nothing to sneeze at, man. You're regularly getting over 10K listens on some of your tracks, 20, 30, sometimes even 50 or 60. Is that enough to eat off of?
It's definitely, I'd say it's enough to get me by on food for the month, but it's not quite at the point where I could use it to live on, but it's definitely nice to have that extra disposable income for sure, especially with something that you love doing, it's your passion. But it's interesting because for most of us SoundCloud guys, our main revenue source isn't actually SoundCloud plays, it's YouTube plays.
Really?
Channels like Ryan Celsius are actually like a huge part of what makes any of this possible. So, thank you guys for that. And for some of us, Spotify is another huge source of income. So if you can pop off on there with some good playlist placements, I know specifically Motat and Speechless, if you know of them, they've been able to get crazy numbers on Spotify from playlist placement. I'm sure that's bringing in big bucks for them.
I haven't heard of, you said sleepless, speechless?
Speechless, yeah.
Speech. I haven't heard of Speechless, but from the people that I've talked to, Motet is like the fucking king.
Yeah, he's grown a lot. He's really good.
Can you talk a little bit more about which platforms work best for producers? Like, what would you rate as the best for revenue and then the worst?
Best for revenue has to be Spotify. And all of the charts that I've looked at have said that YouTube is the worst, but I don't know. I've seen a lot. I've seen good returns from YouTube. I don't know if it's just the funk scene or what, but I definitely think per stream YouTube is pretty low. But since the volume of streams on YouTube is so high, those dollars and cents add up real quick.
Hmm.
But from a per stream standpoint, Spotify is definitely the best.
Okay. And I want to go back to something that you mentioned a little bit earlier. You talked about playlist placement or mix placement. I mean,
Yeah.
can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so on Spotify, it's tough to get a good following because unlike SoundCloud, there's not like a way to directly share something to your followers, right? So the easiest way to do that is through playlist placements. And so if you can get your releases on Spotify featured on, let's say, a Spotify official curated playlist, like I know that Speechless specifically has gotten on placed on many different Spotify lo-fi playlists. Same with other lo-fi artists like Immune. They've been able to really grow their numbers by getting placed on those official playlists, which is different from SoundCloud because playlists aren't super relevant on SoundCloud. The emphasis is definitely more on the direct sharing and reposts.
Okay. Last question regarding like SoundCloud and money and such. You say that for the listens that you're getting and the plays that you're getting with everything combined, it's enough for you to like eat for the month or buy gas or anything like that. Or if you want like I don't know to buy a PlayStation or something like that.
Yeah.
Does that mean that you have a day job?
I'm actually in school full time, so
Oh,
I don't have
really?
a day job. This is my senior year in college, so depending on what the music scene looks like, by the time I graduate, probably have a day job until I can support myself on music.
Absolutely. So what are you like 20, 21?
21, yep.
So what do you go to school for?
I'm actually a double major in video production and entrepreneurship.
Oh, nice. That's pretty awesome. So it definitely sounds like you're trying to set yourself up to have media be the way that you pay the bills, right?
Absolutely, 100%.
Cool. And how does your family feel about that? Are they just like, why don't you be a doctor?
No, they've been super supportive along the way. I've been very fortunate to have the full support from my family, and that's been a big part in I think keeping me going and keeping me inspired to continue making art.
I want to build on that a little bit. Has there ever been a period for you in these years that you've been producing where you're just like, I don't really have this. I don't know what I'm doing. Nobody's really listening. I should just hang it up.
It's definitely like that in the beginning, you know. It's the grind in the beginning, like the on SoundCloud at least, I found that the first 1,000 followers was the biggest grind ever. It was probably like, oh man, I want to say like 18 months from the time I released my first funk tape to when I hit 1,000 followers, and from that time I was posting tracks probably once a week, and if not, maybe once every 2 weeks, and so just constantly on that grind, putting out quality music every week. It really starts to weigh on you, especially if it's not getting too many plays. But it adds up, and if you keep going, some stuff pops off, some stuff doesn't perform as well as you'd like it to. So you just got to keep going until you find something that pops off.
I wanted to follow that up with another question. When you talk about output, just putting stuff out like once a week or once every other week or so, do you just put stuff just to put it out there so your name is still floating around, or would you rather like take the time to really craft a good beat and then put it out?
It always starts with quality, but something I learned, at least when it comes to SoundCloud, you got to be uploading regularly if you want to see consistent growth. That was the reason I tried to stick to a weekly schedule, was just so that I could see that consistent growth and not plateau or fall off. But now that I've built like a decent following, I'm taking a little bit more time. I think the last time I uploaded something to my SoundCloud was probably like 2 months ago or so. But right now I'm working on a larger project. So I think that the bigger the following you have, the more you can afford to take breaks. That there seems to be a linear correlation between those two.
Okay. And I take it that you've been using stuff that you've been learning in school to help you with your music.
Oh yeah, absolutely. From especially from the entrepreneurship aspect, that's been a huge help. Obviously, video production doesn't have a super strong correlation with music production in terms of the funk scene specifically, but yeah, for
Oh,
sure.
all right. Oh God, I feel a burp coming. Uh, it got stuck in my chest. All right.
It's the
Um,
worst.
Either that or like if you feel like you're about to sneeze and then it doesn't come, so you
No,
get like
that's
that.
that's the worst. I changed my mind about the bird. That's the second worst.
Yeah, definitely. So getting back talking about, funk, lo-fi, just that entire underground scene and that whole wave that's been quietly crashing over the music scene. Something that's kind of humorous and strangely fitting for this whole scene is using art from old cartoons and anime or art from The Simpsons for music. So like if you go to your SoundCloud or like Sudier's SoundCloud or something like that, a lot of his music art is from like Looney Tunes or King of the Hill or
Right.
something like that. How did that get
hmm
started?
Honestly, I got no idea. I couldn't tell you. But on SoundCloud, at least, it seems like that style is kind of dying out, at least with the smaller producers. And we might see the same thing on YouTube eventually with channels like your guys migrating to a different aesthetic eventually. But yeah, there's been this evolution recently with people, at least in the funk scene, using different aesthetics to help their music stand out a little bit more. Because there was a period sometime in like 2017 where it seemed like every funk producer was using Simpsons pictures or some sort of old cartoon. I know that this year, for me specifically, I started trying to get away from the old cartoon aesthetic and went for more of a minimalist cartoon style for my art.
And you make some of the music art for your tracks, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that that's from an entrepreneurial perspective, my competitive advantage.
Your unfair
But
advantage, yes.
yeah, so that's I've definitely tried to leverage that aspect of my talents to help my stuff stand out.
Yeah, and even not even speaking about music, if we're just talking strictly about your art, haven't you designed the covers for some of the Holy Mob tapes, like the one with M. Bison?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, for Volume 5 specifically, that was a collaboration I did with DMO Video. He's amazing. He does a lot of art for Smokey, and so that was really cool to collab with him on that. But yeah, I've done a lot of the art for Holy Mob, so that's been a lot of fun too.
Yeah, DJ Smokey, he's out of, I think, Ontario, right?
Yep.
Have you ever traveled up to Canada to, collaborate with any of those funk producers?
Yeah, when I met up with Caspian Rose, Intius, and Red Hands, we all met up in Toronto last winter, and that was a lot of fun. That was crazy.
Nice. It must have been awesome to like finally meet the people in person that have been kind of motivating you and helping you put out your music.
Yeah, definitely, and it's something it's totally different collaborating with them on music in person as opposed to over the internet. Because like, while the internet makes all that stuff more accessible, it's a lot easier to get caught up in other things and distracted and not finish collabs or whatever. But when you're in person, you just fucking pass them your laptop and then they finish it on the spot. And we two of the best songs on Volume 5 were produced in person in Toronto, and that was just an amazing experience.
Oh, what two tracks for Volume 5 were produced in person?
Play Your Cards Right. That was me and Caspian, and then Caspian and Intius's Yo Bitch a Fiend.
Yo, that's my fucking favorite track. I love
Yeah,
that shit.
yep, that was in person in Toronto.
Oh man, that is dope as shit. That's awesome. I get to like hear the inside scoop on that shit. That's awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
One more thing I want to talk about, just the whole funk scene and stuff in general. Like,
hmm
is there any controversial stuff or drama going on in the funk universe that nobody would really know about?
Man, I hate to call out names, but there was a particular person who was on Twitter recently talking about how they started their own wave, like using a certain type of art for their music and a type of style of funk that they make. They were basically claiming that they started all that shit, and so a lot of people were kind of up in arms about that. They were like, "You didn't start this, bro. What the fuck are you talking about?" There hasn't been much. I know that I got in some shit with Vamp like a year ago, but
You and
that's
DJ
over.
Young Vamp?
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if you heard about that. That was,
No, man. What
man,
happened?
it was like August of last year, and I was kind of in a slump, and so I was like, man, I think it'd be a really cool to get a collab with DJ Young Vamp, and I think people would really like that. So I went to Vamp and I was like, "Hey man, we had a collab going a while ago, but it never really came through. I was wondering if you wanted to collab on this. I'll toss you some money for your time if you want." And he was like, "Cool, cool, yeah." Waited 3 months, kept reminding him, and I was like, "Man, I paid you like $50. You got to get that lab back. It's been a quarter of a year." And so I called him out on Twitter, and man, that shit, that was a lot of drama, but he got the lab back to me. It was a good song in the end, and I think problems are solved now. I think we're on decent terms now. I would not recommend paying for collabs in the future to all the producers out there listening, just because I've my thoughts on it have definitely evolved. That um, collabs that come together organically are probably better than ones that are paid for. But that's
Yeah,
just my opinion.
yeah, definitely. And I've run into that issue with people in general, like people who say that they're creatives or who kind of run in the same industry or the same circles that you do. You'll get up with them, you'll want to do a collab or like an interview or something, and my favorite is when they will want you to do work for them, and then like the
Yeah,
minute that you try to mention like payment or a contract, it's like you're a leper or something like that, and
yeah,
they just don't
definitely.
want to work with you. So that definitely blows me. But I also agree,
hmm
like when stuff happens organically, it feels so much better because you know that
it's definitely more fulfilling.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was gonna say. You know that from both sides of the fence, both camps are just in it for that collaborative and that creative energy. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, 100%.
So what is your biggest influence when making music? We've definitely talked about funk and how Memphis rap has definitely helped the genre, and producers are constantly paying homage with their Juicy J samples and stuff like that. So who influences you right now?
Um, Man, in terms of like particular artists, I'm not sure about that, but I would definitely say that I look to other producers' music and other artists' music for that matter, for the most of my inspiration. I know that on my new project that's coming out sometime soon, taking a lot of influence from not only funk music but funk inspired music on Astroworld. Like Astroworld's got some crazy production all over it, and I know it's kind of corny to take inspiration from such a mainstream album, but there's no denying that that production is insane across that entire album. And so definitely other people's songs are probably the biggest influence on my music.
And we mentioned this a little bit before, but when you're working, do you have to like get in your work zone? Do you have like, are you super disciplined about it? Are you just like, all right, when I do this, like I can't be drinking, I can't be smoking, I can't do none of that stuff. I just gotta lock myself in my room and crank out a beat.
Right. Yeah. I think some of my best music probably happens when I'm spontaneously inspired by something and I just sit down and crank out a beat in 2 or 3 hours. But there's definitely some times where it's been like, man, it's been a few weeks. I've been too busy to make beats. I need to just sit down and crank something out. And for me, the hardest part of making beats is sometimes just starting them in the first place, because you can go through 3 or 4 different projects and you just scrap them all because they don't sound right after you've spent like an hour working on them. But sometimes that's what's necessary to get back in the groove of things, is just sit down and force yourself to make something work.
Yeah, absolutely. I've definitely dealt with that, and I've also dealt with having to kind of come to the realization or learn the hard way that not every idea you have is going to be the one that other people are fucking with. Like, you might really like it, but like SoundCloud, for example, if it's not getting the plays, then maybe like you have to approach it from a different angle, or just put out another
Right.
beat and see how people feel about it. All right, man. We got through all the questions. The last one I'll ask for you is what's coming up next? I know you're working on that untitled project. Can you talk a little
Yeah.
bit more about it?
Sure thing. Yeah, I've got a tape coming out probably sometime in the next few months. I've got a few tracks done for it. Just working on getting some more collabs for that. It'll be my first like tape, like actual like bigger project like that in over 2 years. So I'm super excited to release that.
With Holy Mob, when's what is it? What are you guys on? Volume 8 now?
I think we're on 7 now. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah. When's 7 coming out?
7, we're not sure about, but we're working on a different project right now that I can't give too much away about, but I can say it's bigger than anything we or anyone else in the scene has done yet. So we're super excited about that. That'll probably come out sometime next year. But like I said, it's really big. So it's a very ambitious project. It's going to take some time.
Nice. Awesome, man. Awesome. All right. Is there anything that you want to talk about that we haven't already gone over?
Man, we've covered a lot, but I appreciate you bringing me on, man. It's been nice to chat with you. It's been an honor. I really, really super duper appreciate it and all the work that you guys do at the channel.
Thanks again, Vaughn, for sitting down with us. You can find Vaughn on SoundCloud, Twitter, and IG, all with the same handle, Prod Vaughn Storm. We'll be back soon with another interview from the beatmakers who Photoshop their waifus into their IG pics. I'm JV, this is Certified Fresh.